Hi, I'm Rachel from Jimmy Beans Wool, and welcome to the 2019 Cascade Yarns Knitterati Diagonal Afghan. We've taken all the techniques you need to know to participate in this knit along and put them in one handy video. So grab your needles and let's cast on. All right, so basic stitches. I wanted to give you guys just a quick overview of a lot of the basic things that you're going to be seeing throughout the knit along. So let's start with your basic knit stitch. Let me go ahead and move into my swatch a couple stitches here. And then, so to knit, you're going to take your right needle and insert it into the front leg of the stitch on your left needle. And then you wrap your yarn around and pull your needle through just like that. So let me come up a little closer and see if I can show you that one more time. Hopefully this is just a reminder for most people because some of the techniques in these squares are a little bit complicated. So you definitely want to make sure that you have got your knitting skills down pretty well at this point. Okay, so that's knitting, and then purling is pulling your yarn, your working yarn, into the front of the swatch. And then you go ahead and purl by putting your right needle into the front leg of the stitch on the left, but this time you have it to the front instead of to the back. Wrap your yarn around it and then pull that stitch off. So again, into the front of the stitch, purl, and then off the needle. So into the front of the stitch again, wrap around, and then lift off the needle. So that's your basic knit and purl stitch, and you definitely want to be very, very comfortable with those two stitches before you get started on this project. Another thing that you might be asked to do is slip stitches. So you can slip stitches a couple different ways. You can slip them either knitwise or purlwise, and either with the yarn in the front or the yarn in the back. So you're really going to want to pay attention to what the pattern says in this case, but I will show you all the different ways to do that. First of all, I'm going to hold the yarn in back. So when it says with yarn in front or with yarn in back, that literally means hold your working yarn to the back or the front. So I'm going to start with it in the back. And then if you're going to slip it purlwise, you're going to take your right needle and insert it into the next stitch as if you were going to knit it. And then instead of knitting it, you slip it right off the end of the needle, just like that. And since I've got the yarn in the back, that is that's where your position is for the working yarn for your next stitch. Okay, let me go back over and show you that one more time. So you insert your right needle into the stitch as if to knit, and then pull it right off. Okay, now if you were going to do that same stitch with the yarn in front, pull your working yarn to the front, and then do the exact same thing. Insert your needle as if to knit, and then slip it right off the end. And then your working yarn is placed in the front for whatever your next stitch might be. Okay, so let's do the same thing as if to purl now. You use the slip yarn as if to purl stitch if you don't want to twist the stitch. So that's when you would use that. And let's just do it since my yarn is already in the front. Let's do slip it as if to purl with yarn in front. So in this case, you're going to insert your right needle as if to purl, so into the front of that stitch right there, and then slip it right off. And then you can see your working yarn is placed in the front of the work, so you can continue on with whatever the pattern is. Okay, so I'll do that one more time. You insert your right needle as if to purl, and then slip it right off. Okay, and then with yarn in back is going to be just as you might expect after seeing those previous three. So you insert your right needle into the front of the stitch, slip it off as if to purl, and then your working yarn is waiting back here on the back side for you for whatever your next stitch might be. So that is slipping with yarn in front, with yarn in back, and then knit and purlwise depending on what the pattern says. Okay, and then the final thing I'm going to show you that you might see, you'll grab a stitch marker for this, and that is PM and SM. PM means place marker, and you're going to want to grab a ring marker of some sort. This is actually a locking marker, but you can use it as a ring marker. And wherever it says PM, you're going to drop your stitch marker right onto your work and then keep on knitting. So let's say it said PM right there. You just drop your needle, and now that marker is marking that spot in your work. And then similarly, I'm going to kind of back up here real quick, get on the other side of the marker. If you encounter the SM instruction, that means slip marker. So what you will do there is knit along. When you get to the marker, you will just slip it from one needle to the other. You don't move the position, it continues marking wherever it is. There might be some other stitches that you're doing around the marker, but the marker itself will just get slipped. And then you just continue on past it. So that is all of the basic stitches that you'll need to know for the knit along. Now I'm going to show you how to do increases. All right, so let's get that marker out of the way. All right, so increases. You've got your got a couple basic ones that you're going to encounter in these patterns. Yarn over, of course, is going to be your first one, and your working yarn might be in either the front or the back. It doesn't really matter what the position is. What you want to do for a yarn over is pull the working yarn over the top of the right needle. So if the yarn is in back like it is now, you're going to bring it forward and go over the top of the needle. And when you do that, you can see it creates a loop over the top. That's going to be your new stitch. And then you either knit or purl the next stitch. Let me get past that just a smidge. There we go. So you can see that I created a hole right there with that yarn over. That's a purposeful hole increase. And then if you were potentially going to be knitting or purling the next stitch, what you'll do is you'll pull the yarn forward and you actually go all the way around the needle like that, and then you purl the next stitch. So you can see that the same result happens here. Both of them you get a yarn over, but depending on whether you knit or purl, you just have to make sure you get your working yarn into the right position. And that's how you do a yarn over. Okay, so then we have make one right and make one left, and sometimes it'll just say make one, and in that case you can kind of you know, do whichever one you prefer. So let's start with make one left. You're going to take your right needle and you're going to lift the bar in between the stitches on your left and your right needle. So that's this bar kind of running across here. Let me see if I can sort of lift it with my finger. It's this bar that runs between the stitches. So you're going to take your right needle, insert it from front to back under that strand, that bar, and then put it over onto your left needle. Okay, so it's going over the top of that needle. The leg is kind of positioned front to back there. And then you're going to take your right needle and you are going to knit into the back of that stitch. And that is the make one left, and it's because it crosses over to the left. That's why it's called a make one left. Okay, so then for a make one right, exact same thing. You're going to come to this bar right here, and you're going to take your right needle, and this time you will pick it up from the back to the front and put it on your needle like that. Let me do that one more time. Kind of got confused myself there. These are a little bit confusing sometimes. You kind of just sort of have to do them and see that they are leaning in the proper direction. But take your right needle and insert it into the back of that bar, and then put it on your needle so that it is positioned with this bar facing to the back, or this leg is facing to the back. And then you're going to knit into the front of this stitch. And what that does is create a right leaning decrease. You can see how this is crossing to the right there. So that's a make one right. Okay, so the last increase I want to show you real quick is just a simple knit front and back, and this is probably the simplest of these types of increases. You're going to take your right needle and you're going to put it into the next stitch as if to knit. Go ahead and knit that stitch, pull it through, but don't pull it off of the needle. You're going to take your right needle and go into the back of the stitch now, and then knit again. And that creates two stitches out of one right there. I'm going to do that one more time. You go into the front of the stitch, knit, don't pull it off of the needle, and then go into the back of the stitch, and then knit there as well. All right, and that is your knit front and back increase. Okay, so let me back up here a minute because we are going to move on to decreases. And rather than turn my work, I would rather just show you guys on the right side some of the basic decreases. So let me get past these increases. All right, let's go from here. Okay, decreases. So the first decrease that I'm going to show you is knit two together, and it is exactly how it sounds. You're going to take your right needle, you're going to insert it into the next two stitches on your left needle. So both of them together, and then wrap your working yarn around and knit as usual. And that will take those two stitches and knit them into one. So let me show you that one more time. Take your right needle, insert into two stitches together, and knit. That's knit two together. All right, so slip, slip, knit. Slip, slip, knit is slipping two stitches and then knitting them together basically. So you're gonna slip one stitch, slip your second stitch, insert your left needle into the front of those two stitches, and then knit as usual. And that will create your left leaning decrease. So one more time, you're gonna slip one, slip two, put your left needle into the front of those two stitches, and then knit together. So there's your slip, slip, knit. All right, so similar to knit two together, I'm gonna also show you a purl two together real quick because you can see that stitch fairly often. Purl two together is exactly what it sounds like. You are going to insert your right needle into the next two stitches as if to purl, and then purl them together. And then let's do it one more time. Insert into the front of two and purl two together. Right? So that is your purl two together decrease. And then I'm going to show you just one more. You don't encounter this one quite as often, but it is a great decrease for lace in particular. So I wanted to include it here in your basic stitches. And this is the slip knit pass, SKP. So to do that, you're going to slip one as if to purl, knit the next stitch, and then pass that slip stitch over, just like that. So let me show you one more time. Slip one as if to purl, knit, and then pass that slip stitch over. All right, so that is all the basic stitches, increases, and decreases that you need to know for the Knitterati diagonal Afghan. All right, so that was all the stitches you need to know for the knit along. Be sure and comment below if you have any questions, and check back with us because we'll show you how to do the more advanced techniques and stitches as we go along block by block. I'm Rachel, thanks for watching. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing because we have a lot more yarn reviews, tutorials, and other fiber fun like that. Happy crafting!